Welcome to another episode of TERF Talk Down Under. I'm Stassja and with me is Ange. Hi, Ange.
Hi, Stass.
Beautiful greenery behind you there.
Yes, crappy Wi-Fi in the house due to electrical storms here in sunny Melbourne.
Well, it's been another week of turfery.
It has. It's been a frustrating week this week.
Yeah. So I'll start with some news from Tasmania. So I spoke with Isla McGregor earlier today, and she's been approached as the woman running this new group called the Free Speech Alliance Australia. She's been approached to organise an event at Parliament House, inviting all the Tasmanian MPs, lower house and upper house, to come along and hear from people like Diana Kenny and Judith Hunter, possibly Ollie Davies, the detransitioner. So in order to give politicians an understanding of how bad this anti-gay conversion therapy legislation will be for children, for gender confused children. Yesterday, Equality Tasmania held an event at Parliament House where they spruiked how wonderful this legislation is for the LGBTQIA++ community. So they've got to have their say and explain their position to politicians. And, you know, in a democracy, it's only fair that, well, the other side gets heard. So Isla sent out invitations to all of these these politicians in Tasmania. And one of those MPs is a woman called Cassie O'Connor, who is a Greens MP, and she's transed one of her children. So when she found out that there was this potential event by the Free Speech Alliance going on, she's completely cracked shit, as trans activists do, behaved like it's the end of the fucking world. She's called upon the Tasmanian Premier to cancel the event. Bearing in mind, this is the first event that the Free Speech Alliance is putting on, and they are calling to fucking cancel it.
Of course they are.
Insane. Now, I haven't kept up with all of this, so I'm retelling all of this as I heard it from Isla McGregor. But apparently the Mercury has ran a story promoting how great this anti-gay conversion therapy stuff will be. I think that there's a Liberal MP who has sponsored the Free Speech Alliance event. So she's involved in, booking the room and all of that at Parliament House. Yep. I think it was on ABC Radio this morning, and got absolutely slammed with bullshit questions like, do you support gay conversion therapy? They just have no idea what they're doing. It is so frustrating. And on the other side of all of this, like, these people like that, you know, you'd have to be ashamed of yourself once you find out what you're supporting, you know?
Well, as we know, the Cass Review has recommended that children have explorative therapy. It's gone against the affirmation model that the conversion legislation is enforcing. And the problem with this legislation, it isn't just it's creating a fast track into gender affirming care, because GPs and, people who people approach with the first consult, let's say, say a person has a child who they want to transition, because I don't believe there is such a thing as a trans child, but if someone's child, little boy plays with pink and the mother goes, oh, they're transgender, and they go off to the local GP, they get a referral to a gender clinic straight away. And that's what's happening because of the conversion legislation here in Victoria. It's fast tracking children into the affirmation only approach. Now, so many countries across the world are raising red flags about affirmation only. And yet here in Australia, we're doubling down on it. It just does not make sense. And the fact that they're not allowing debate on it too. Diana Kenny she knows her stuff. She's not a lay person that we're just getting in to talk about it. We've got professionals who are trying to be heard, who are being completely ignored by the media and other agencies that should be paying attention to them. And governments, for example, they should be paying attention to them too. It's disgusting.
So the Tas Premier has said, I support their right to hold the event, but I don't support their views. So he's all for transing the gay away.
Yep.
And he's a Liberal. So if the Liberals are on board with this, Tasmania is about to fall.
I actually don't think that these politicians, I think, a lot of the main ones are well and truly aware of what they're doing. They're doing this deliberately. But I think the average layperson hasn't thought it through, that they've been advised that, that it's a small minority of children, that they present a particular set of symptoms. They assume safeguarding, and safeguarding isn't happening. And these politicians, because we're living in an echo chamber where the media narrative is that this is all good and safe and there's lots of safeguarding and we're doing the right thing, I think they're just completely oblivious to what's actually going on. Detransitioners, we've had 2 stories from detransitioners in the last 6 months or so, but they've got no platform anywhere else. Every time I log in online, I hear detransitioners in the UK and the US telling their stories, but I never hear Australian detransitioners because they have no voice here. Now, that's who should be talking to the politicians. That's who we need to hear from this regarding this conversion legislation, because they've lived through the process, not for someone who wants to transition their kid. That's like a second-hand account. It's just ridiculous.
There was in Florida, they had the Florida Medical Board hearings listened to testimony from, I can't remember how many, but about 10 detransitioners got up and spoke. Each of them spoke for about 3 minutes. Yep. I watched all of them and it's just like, fucking hell, like, we are so far behind here.
We are. And we're being, the degree of censorship is off the charts. Both Sal Grover and I are serving some bizarre ban on Twitter. So, tweets that we would have put out that would reach thousands of people, we're lucky to reach 100. Yeah. Because we've got some weird shadow ban on our accounts. Yeah. And, people are relying on us to tell the truth about these issues. And we're not even getting heard by our own echo chamber, let alone getting this important stuff like, the impact of conversion bills, or like male sex offenders being put into prisons, female prisons. The public aren't hearing about that stuff because the few people that are talking about it are just completely silenced. And then we have the opposite, where the ABC is just pro-trans, ram down our throats, that the average person, even the average politician, thinks, well, everything's under control, everything's okay. Otherwise, we would be hearing about the bad stuff.
The ABC has been in the news this week. They had Courtney Act, the transvestite, on Play School reading to children. Kath Deves did an excellent piece about that in The Spectator. she tied in a number of different things. She did it really well, including this upcoming case by this Christian guy, Lyle Shelton.
Oh, yeah.
So he's been taken to a human rights tribunal by a couple of drag queens because he wrote a couple of blogs about how drag queen story time is bad for children. For that, he's going before a freaking human rights tribunal.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane. So she tied that in. And she called out the ABC and she brought up ACON and the ABC's links to ACON. She did a really good job of it. Yeah. And then you go.
Oh, the thing that frustrates me about Courtney Act, or whatever his name is, he's a gay man who gets a lot of money because he looks like Sophie Monk when he gets into drag. Like if he was employed by the ABC to speak as a gay man and to read that book as a gay man, then I'd be cool with it.
Yeah, yeah.
But what they're doing is they're using people like Courtney Act, the trans version of this man, to open the door for all the AGPs. For the kind of dirty, disgusting drag queens that we've all seen from time to time if we've ever been to a drag show. There's some reasonable drag, and then there's these real disgusting woman haters. Now they're the ones with this hypersexualized names and stuff that are getting these drag queen story hour gigs. We're not talking about the Courtney Acts of the world. And I think this is where a lot of the argument got lost. People thought it was an attack on Shane, that's his name, thought it was an attack on Shane and his persona of Courtney Act. It wasn't. It's just that we can all see what they're trying to gaslight us into saying that all drag queens are like this bloke, when they're not.
Yeah.
They're not at all.
Well, Senator Antic brought it up in some Senate estimates thing and described it as grooming children, and he got really slammed, I think, by the Guardian newspaper.
Yeah.
And I can understand from the perspective of people who don't know a lot about this. Like, I think the general attitude out there would be, yeah, so what? Drag queen, like, what's the big deal? Because that's how I used to view it. I remember, and I think I probably said this before, but I remember when there was that protest against a drag queen story time at a public library, and the next day the young Liberal guy killed himself.
Yeah, that was awful. Yeah.
And I remember thinking at the time, and I probably even put it in a Facebook comment on one of the news articles about that. I said, oh, sounds like that young Liberals guy just had a lot of internalized homophobia. Like, that was my level of understanding. And, it wasn't until I was introduced to feminist analysis of drag queens that I understood that, yeah, it's woman face. Yeah, it is 100% taking the piss out of women and women's second-class status in society. It absolutely is. I don't condone drag queens anymore. And, the other thing is fucking RuPaul's Drag Race has so normalized this. I mean, that show has been running for like over a decade now or something, hasn't it?
Yep.
And people just think, oh, yeah, drag queens, that's normal.
Because they're showing like the elite drag queen, like they're showing, Blair White as an example of a trans woman. It's completely not based in reality. It's gaslighting.
Yeah. The other interesting thing with the ABC's involvement with ACON, last night I watched the 7:00 news on the ABC when I eat my dinner, and they were doing an article about the Medibank data leak.
Yeah.
segment. And yesterday it was revealed that women who had pregnancy terminations and had put that through Medibank, they had just had all of their data leaked on the dark web. And the way that the fucking ABC introduced this story was people who have had abortions. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Not from the ABC. I can't watch it. I can't watch 5 minutes of it. And all I watched was the ABC and SBS. I was never one into the commercial channels. And now I can't stand 5 minutes of the ABC.
Yeah.
Because of this bullshit.
I cannot see any way to reform the ABC on these issues. I don't understand how it could happen. Unless there's like one ABC journalist who's a really big name who steps up to the plate and says, hey, this is fucked up. Nothing is going to change. Nothing.
Yeah. Well, we've already had the ACON exposure, but, Media Watch is a small audience of leftists usually. It's not the general public. Although last time I had a look on YouTube, that particular episode of Media Watch had, 70,000 views or something like that, which is, a fair few. So unless the mainstream starts saying, we think it's wrong for female-based language to be erased, all the we think it's wrong for children to be rushed through childhood gender transition because so many experts, naming them blah, 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 have said so. Until someone has the balls to stand up and say that stuff, nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
I mean, if a trans-identifying male can win a human rights award for putting a male sex pest in a female jail, that's how fucked up, and nobody cares. That's how fucked up our society is.
It's mind-boggling. Also on the ABC, there was an excellent article in The Australian last week. It was titled ABC Silence on Key Trans Issues Hints at Dangerous Dark Age. So this was by conservative woman Janet, I think it's Albrechtsen. I've seen a number of, she has written on these issues before, but this was a really good piece. She talked about the changes in the UK, the fact that the Tavistock is shut, and it was all focused on ABC are completely silent on the medical sterilization of children that is going on in this country. She did a really good job. Yeah.
And it's mass sterilization, because I live in the boondocks, and every time I leave the house, I see a young woman with no breasts. And my teenage daughter tells me the rate of young women identifying as transgender in her school in the last 2 years is through the roof. So it's gone from none 2 years ago, like year 7, none, end of year 9, there'd be 6 in her grade, 4 in another, just crazy amount. And we all know that there's such pressure on these girls to have the surgery to prove how genuine they are, that they are genuinely trans enough to get their boobs cut off.
It just reminded me, I just watched this amazing documentary series called The Vow, and it's about the NXIVM cult. Do you know anything about NXIVM?
No.
So you join and it just seems like this self-help, self-improvement, personal growth thing, and it just gets more and more fucked up. And the founder, who's this creepy man who's a psychopath and very manipulative, he organizes this small group of women who all take a vow, and part to like, and they call themselves slaves, and the person above them in the hierarchy is their master, and the master is like sending them text messages, do this, do that. If you don't respond to the text message within 2 minutes, then you have to have a cold shower every day for a month. Just crazy shit. But part of the vow was being branded.
Oh, yep.
And they found out later that they had been branded with this man's initials, but it had been, you know, turned into this little sort of sigil, so it wasn't clear that it was his initials. And I'm watching this, and viewers will know I've had quite a fascination with Scientology recently, but this was like the branding that they get in this cult. Well, the branding they get in the transgender cult is 2 giant scars across their chest.
Yep.
And I just, the parallels are so obvious to me. Anyway, I highly recommend it. You would enjoy that show.
I do like cults. I like watching shows about cults, but then they infuriate me because I recognise the Transborg.
Yeah. Senator Antic has also once again put the question to the chief medical officer as to, because, you know, they in some meeting they kept saying pregnant people, and Senator Antic was just, I just want some clarification. Like, you keep saying pregnant people, but do you mean women? And put the chief medical officer, I can't remember his name, put him on the spot again, and like asked him directly, can men get pregnant? And
What did you say?
He did the whole like did that for a little bit, and then became actually very transphobic. He said that you have to have a uterus, you have to have female sexual reproductive organs in order to carry a child. Now,
that's true.
Totally transphobic, though.
Yep. Everything's transphobic.
So that was good. And then Jessica Hoyle got a piece in The Australian. I didn't actually get to read it, but I know the story. So Jess was in a Target store in Launceston in Tasmania, and she was wearing her LGB Tasmania hoodie, and she was just having a conversation with a couple of women about how crazy the transgender stuff is. And along comes a Target employee wearing a they them badge, and all hell broke loose, and Jessica was asked to leave the store. So Jessica put in a complaint to the Human Rights Tribunal in Tasmania, and I'm not sure if she's actually been to that tribunal hearing yet or not, because I didn't read the article. But that was the story, and it was good to get some exposure on it.
I wish more people had Jessica's enthusiasm for, you know, taking these people to these tribunals and things.
So do I.
Because, you know, they're imposing so many things on people, particularly in the workplace, and people don't want to make a scene, they don't want to risk their job, whatever. And everyone just says yes and okay, or puts up with it, or has a whinge to their friends and just conforms to what they want. If more people just said, nah, you're not going to get away with this, and took it as far as they possibly could, then we have a chance of getting out of this mess. And until people are willing to challenge this bullshit, particularly in their workplace where their sex-based rights should be protected by law, until we test whether, you know, sex and sexuality are walked all over by gender identity, then, you know, we're lost at sea. You know, we really do have to stand up to this. And I admire Jessica for enjoying the process enough to not let them get away with numerous things.
I I have been messaging with a woman. I think I brought this up a few weeks ago. She's under attack in her workplace because someone who she must have been friends with on Facebook, because her Facebook account is completely locked down. So someone she's friends with has taken all these screenshots of articles that she's been sharing about the transgender debate, and a few memes. Like, memes weren't really like terribly offensive, but they've sent it all to her employer.
Is she in the education area?
I can't say.
Okay.
At this point. But, you know, she's had the meeting with her superior today and it didn't go well. Her superior is right. I'm not in a position to determine whether what you've posted on Facebook is transphobic or not. So I'm going to have to refer this even higher for them to make a determination. So
if I was to post on my on my private Facebook page something controversial and someone reported it to the police would come back and say, well, she's on a lockdown page, it's her private opinion, that's none of your business, right? Even if I posted something really offensive. Yet employers seem to be disciplining their staff members on private conversations. If the police have no authority to do that, how the fuck are employers getting away with it? Because ACON's told them that they can, but how are they getting away with it? We need people to fight this.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that this woman's case will just blow up and be pivotal, hopefully. She doesn't want that, and I can totally understand why.
Yeah.
But her position, her job that she holds could be really, really significant in fighting this.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Anyone who has the guts to, take these people on, we will support them. We will crowdfund for you if we need to. There are people out there who are willing to help you, and some people with far more influence than myself, people who will financially support a court case, for example. So, if you are being pressured at work and you want to stand up, don't be afraid. Reach out and say, hey, this is happening to me at work, and a network of people will get behind you.
And look, this anonymous woman that I'm talking about, she's not the only one that's been threatened this week. So viewers may remember we had Tori Rosenbaum on
yes
2 or 3 weeks ago. So she's the author of the book Strange Angel. She's a mother to an ROGD daughter, and now her second daughter, her younger daughter, has also started identifying as trans. So she came on our show and she talked about her book, and I suspect it was probably her appearing on this show that has resulted in what's happened. She gets this message. I'm going to read it out because it's fucked up. It's by some account on Twitter called Alt Media Watch, as in Alternate Media Watch. I have been doing an investigation into you as the author of Strange Angel. I have linked it's been redacted, to the book and other details to determine that your real name is redacted, which I will be releasing to the public with all the details of how I drew this conclusion. I wanted to give you the right of reply to comment before I do so. The information will be published in the next 24 hours and will give you until then to respond to the allegations. So these fucking assholes have gone...
I know who it is. I know the identity of that person. It's a anti-fascist, a supposed anti-fascist who's acting like a fascist. I know who the person is that's trying to dox Tory.
Well, he or she has succeeded. He's released his expose online. I'm not going to link to it because it does contain Tory's real name. She had some minimal success in getting this fucking asshole's tweets removed. Hello, Ewok. But his whole expose on her has been archived.
Yep.
And from what we understand, the people that run this archive site are totally full-on trans activists. There's no way that Tory is going to be successful in getting it removed from the archive site.
Yep.
So, you know, Tory, if you're watching, this is your chance. Just own it. Say, yeah, it was me. What the fuck are you going to do about it?
Yeah, I
fucking went through this shit with my kids, and I have a goddamn right to tell the world about it.
Yeah, and you'll sell more books.
Yeah.
People really are looking to understand. And I think Tory's book would really help a lot of parents. So it's up to her. You know, the thing with though is that she's trying to protect her children and her husband from the inevitable bullshit that will be directed towards them. So, you know, her children are trans identifying. That, you know, indicates that they are emotionally very vulnerable. And this moron who's doxed their mother is basically directing abuse towards those kids from the community that they are now involved in. It was such a stupid, selfish, thoughtless thing to do from someone who is supposedly helping trans kids. It's disgusting. And I'm not surprised by it. You know? Sorry, dog's attacking me.
I think the really scary thing for Tory at the moment is where this could lead for her and her children.
Yes. I've had my family attacked. You know, when I was doxed, I didn't care. But the person who did it was a crazy white supremacist dentist, targeted my brother who has a disability and lives in a nursing home, and my children. And I had to fight back. So, you know, when they go after your family, it is the worst feeling, the feeling of powerlessness. It is, I just can't begin to describe it. So I fully understand why people want to remain anonymous to protect their children, because having your family, you know, dragged through the mud like that is devastating. It really is. And having your family members threatened. We know that trans rights activists are abusive and threatening and, you know, threaten harm on people. They're doing it all the time, and they will do it towards anyone they perceive as having gender critical views.
You just reminded me of something else, because I read part of the expose on Tory, and they introduce it with this whole thing. What we're doing is called unmasking. This is what marginalized communities do to protect themselves from people that wish them harm. So they are rebranding cancel culture as unmasking.
Yeah.
They are rebranding doxing and harassment and this malicious use of fucking the internet and social media as unmasking.
Well, this person's like a left-wing incel type. You know, they're not a great authority on, you know, healthy politics. So,
do you know his name?
Yeah, I can find it out fairly easily.
Have you spoken with Tory about any of this?
Yes. She, when I spoke to her a couple of days ago, she just wanted to not bring attention to it and amplify them, because initially she and I were going to go hell for leather on Twitter, and actually deleted a tweet where I was outing that dude for being a doxing piece of shit. Yeah. So, because my favorite response to that sort of behavior is attack. Because, you know, I'm from the left. I kind of got an idea of how these people operate. And when you hold them to account and just mirror their behavior back at them, they tend to step back and go, well, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting you to cower. I was expecting you to beg, and I was expecting you to grovel. And when you turn it around and put it back at them, they don't like it.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Because that's the other thing. I remember when we were at that restaurant and the freaking trans activists came in with their phones filming us. Like, at the end of that, when that was all over and we're just sitting down having a conversation again, you know, someone said something and I was just like, yeah, but you know what? I don't think anyone gives a shit except for the TERFs and the trans activists. And
Yeah.
it's kind of the same with this situation with Tory. Like, no one gives a shit except these two sides.
Mm.
It's not something that the media is going to report on unless it, you know, gets completely out of hand.
So this is that silly thing where people are getting into the left and right argument. The reason that the right wingers are showing up in the TERF debate is because the anti-fascists are showing up. If the anti-fascists just kept their frigging mouths shut and stopped attacking people who have gender critical beliefs, then these right-wing nut jobs would stay away too.
Yeah.
So they're creating the situation, and trans people and TERFs are in the middle of it trying to sort out their differences. And we've got the extreme right and the extreme left going hell for leather at each other and each side trying to, you know, drag the people in the middle towards them.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. And you know, Alan Davison touched on it, you know, that we have this echo chamber because the moderates aren't given a voice.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, well, look, in other news, Edie Wyatt did an excellent piece in The Spectator called How AIDS Charities Are Erasing Gay Men. I highly recommend everyone read it. She has reported on a gay man here in Victoria, Jason Whitehall. So he's named in the article. He telephoned like I think it was like some LGBT helpline because he's feeling stressed and anxious about trans identified females and this whole, you know, erasing of his sexuality, this woke homophobia that he's dealing with on a daily basis on social media. And they said they weren't able to find a counsellor that was willing to work with him.
Yep.
So
I've got a couple of friends who are HIV positive, you know, and ACON being the AIDS charity and all that. And they too are, you know, like they're obviously in midlife, you know, your health becomes a bit more precarious, and they have, you know, AIDS isn't curable. You know, there are treatments, but their health is still impacted by that. And I've had, you know, 4 or 5 of my friends who are HIV positive saying that they don't feel that the AIDS charities acknowledge them at all, and that they're just left on the NDIS or to the, you know, local community health centre now.
Wow.
I mean, these charities were set up for these men.
Yeah.
You know, to support these men throughout their life. And they're sick to death of being conflated with the TQ plus.
Yeah.
You know, these are men who've survived AIDS. Like, I've got a couple of friends who've had AIDS had HIV since the 80s and never developed full-blown AIDS.
Yeah.
But, you know, the symptoms are still debilitating. Having a compromised immune system is still debilitating, particularly as you get older. And these charities are not there for these men anymore. They're there for the TQ plus.
Well, that's exactly right. Jason, who's featured in this article, he's had HIV since the 80s. And the other point that Edie brought up was, you know, a lot of the gay men that died during the 80s, they you know, bequeathed their estate to these AIDS charities to get them set up. So that is what ACON is founded on. And now they're saying homosexuality is transphobic. Absolutely. What a kick, the kick in the guts, or, you know.
This is it. If they had a thing on, say, you know, Insight or one of those television programs where they had gay men and lesbians talking about how their needs differ from the TQ.
Yeah.
That would be responsible journalism.
Yeah.
The average person has no idea the discontent between the acronym. They have no idea. because everywhere you look, the trans has attached itself to the entire acronym.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, there is no LGB rights anymore, except for LGBT Alliance, who have been named a hate group. You know, it's just ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. I'm being eaten alive by mosquitoes. I'm being rained on. I've got animals attacking me.
Oh God. 10 more minutes.
That's all right. And, you know, so the trans activists, you know, they don't worry me. It's more scary out here in my garden.
Okay, on to some more craziness. This one's from New Zealand. The Midwifery Council of New Zealand has revised its midwifery scope of practice guidelines to entirely remove the words woman and mother.
Oh my God.
They have done
How?
this. They have done this in order to be more inclusive and, this is quoting them, address a detrimental imbalance of representation, understanding and appreciation of Maori knowledge, values and practice. They are saying they've done this for Maori culture.
No way. No way.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Like,
So what, and have any Maori orgs come out apart from, you know, Manawahini Carrero, which will be going mental? Have any other Maori orgs come out and said, no, that is not our culture?
I'm not sure, but I would guess no.
That is unbelievable.
It's
unbelievable.
It is so woke that they no longer have brains. They have shit in their brains.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really bad.
Far out.
Yeah.
I thought it was, you know, horrible enough that the you know, the agencies set up to support women in jail were now supporting trans women as well in jail. I thought that was pretty bad, but midwives now supporting trans people over natal females is crazy.
Yeah.
Completely crazy.
Yeah. That's all the news I've got. Anything from your end?
No, just same old stuff about, you know, trans rights activists trying to shut down any attempts that normal people get to speak up. You know, I was speaking to Anna McCormack in Brisbane. She's got an event coming up and they've been targeting the venue because they've been trying to intimidate her into cancelling. So now they're intimidating the venue. They're looking for the security to try and target that company. You know, the lengths they are going to stop decent, normal people from asking decent, normal questions is astonishing. So that in itself, there's no debate, proves that they have everything to hide.
They're absolutely the fascists now.
Yeah.
It's the irony of them partnering with Antifa. Like, it's just like oh my God, how long is it going to take? Like another 10 years before they look in the mirror and go, oh, actually what I did was actually a bit fucked up.
Like it's when it impacts on them personally. And for most of these people, they're young people. It's not going to impact on them personally for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're not going to be in aged care and want a female carer because you feel safer. And in walks a bloke in lipstick. They're not going to be in that position. They're not going to be taking their kids off to, you know, the local swimming lessons and having an AGP staying there walking around with his dick out in the change rooms. You know, it's until it affects you personally, you don't care. I'm really lucky it affected me personally 7-8 years ago when my father-in-law came out as an AGP, and it kind of woke me up because I've always known trans people. I've always known the, you know, homosexual, transsexual who honestly didn't, you know, caused me no harm in my personal life. I also know quite well, you know, some young lesbian women who ended off becoming trans identifying, you know. So I guess until it affects you in person, until it's your kid that comes home and says, I think I'm the opposite sex, you know, and more people are being impacted. And it's sort of like it's gaining momentum, but more people are speaking up on our side and saying, you know, my kid came home and said they're trans, or you know, someone at my workplace has come out as trans and it's going to impact on our business and I'm too scared to say anything. And more people are being impacted by it and trying to speak up. And the media and the government are doubling down with this legislation and with this propaganda via ACON in the media. You know, so they've got the double-headed approach. The media's posting the positive propaganda and silencing the dissenters. And then the government's legislating anyone brave enough to speak up. It's just, it is full-on totalitarian fascism.
Yeah, yeah. And I've just thought of the perfect meme to put as the thumbnail for this week's video.
Oh, yeah?
It's I can't be bothered describing it, but I'll send it to you after. And
yeah, so good.
But
as long as it won't get us banned.
No, I don't think so. Anyway, okay, we've got about 10 minutes left, so I have a bit of an announcement to make. I'm taking a break from TERF Talk, from the group that I run, the Coalition for Biological Reality, which I'm just going to call CBR. I'm taking a break. I've been at this for 2 years now, and I haven't really had a substantial break in that time. So this is it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go and do some camping and just get away from it all and not spend much time on social media. Hopefully we'll see how I go. And so in the meantime, I am handing the reins over to you, Ange.
Yeah. I'm terribly sad because I love our weekly catch-ups. And I did think, oh, well, we'll just, you know, kill off TERF Talk. But we've got so many wonderful followers. And we really are one of the few voices that Australian people have to talk about this stuff. And I too am burned out, but I don't have an opportunity to have a break. So I'm happy to keep it going. And that if anytime you want to pop in, you know, as for a guest visit from the middle of nowhere, or you want to come back, that's your chair. It's got your name on it. You know, I've asked a few of our, you know, former guests if they want to pop in as guest hosts, and a couple of them have said, yeah, sure, we'd love to help you out, because they think it's, you know, that this channel is important because it's about the cause, because it's not about us, you know, it's about the cause. And yeah, so, you know, I'd love to have a break too, but I'm really excited for you, you know, and you've worked harder than most people. And, you know, you've copped a lot of crap over the last 2 years. You know, you've achieved heaps. You know, you've had your successful meeting down in Hobart. You know, the coalition page has been quoted as a resource for a lot of things. You know, you've brought some really influential people into our circle who are fighting with us to, you know, change things. So, you know, if anyone's earned some time out, it is you, Stass. You have worked, you know, 10,000 times more than most people. So, yeah, good for you. I'm very jealous.
Oh, thanks, Ange.
I'll come up and visit you at some point in my four-wheel drive.
Yeah, cool.
Yes. I won't recognise you because of your tan.
Or my burn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I just, you know, for everyone watching, no one's coming to save us. It really is up to us. This is a grassroots movement because Labor is completely captured with this stuff. Yeah. The Greens, the Liberals, I don't think they're as captured, but they're like just so cowardly and unwilling to take this on.
Because of the money involved, because it's all about the money. This is, you know, this is capitalism pretending to be a social justice movement. Yeah. And the reason the politicians are doubling down is because they love money, because their health system is failing and trans medicine is bringing millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, it really is up to ordinary people and you know, I tried with the coalition group to bring all the different factions together, and sometimes it worked, but mostly it didn't work. It just didn't. You know, you've got Christians in the group trying to, you know, actually a while back I had a woman trying to convince feminists that there was no patriarchy. It's like, that's the kind of diverse way of thinking, of diversity of people that I was trying to bring together, and it just doesn't work. And the other thing is, I think I really encourage people to get together in groups of, say, 5 people and start doing some work, like putting together letters, going and lobbying your local MP, explaining to them what's really going on. I think we're going to have a lot more success in these like smaller groups.
Yeah.
It's just too hard to organize 500 people.
Yeah. But, you know, we do also need, you know, big numbers to come to protests and things like that. So I think there are times where we need to bring everybody together from all sorts of backgrounds and put just women and same-sex attracted people and kids first. So there are times for that, but I think we are more effective working in little splinter groups and then coming together for the big actions and things like that. You know, and you've been caught in the crossfire for 2 years. Caught in the crossfire. You know, you must be looking forward to a break. It's going to be interesting. You know, it's going to be the big shoes you've left for the guest hosts. There's going to be some people who are really going to challenge me, who've offered to sit in that chair. So yes, it'll be interesting to see what people with, you know, maybe different political perspectives to us can bring. You know,
Well, to all our viewers, be nice in the comments.
I don't read them, so I don't care what they say.
Whoever comes along, no comparing me to them, just, you know.
Yeah, and hopefully you'll come back and you'll be refreshed, and you know, and I'll have a bit of a better internet setup by then, hopefully be a little bit more professional than coming to you from my mosquito bitten deck. So
well, and you know, it's always possible that some really big name celebrity or well-known personality here in Australia finally steps up and says, hey, hang on a second, this is fucked.
Yeah.
And maybe,
I think there's plenty you know, staying really, really, really quiet.
All right, well, thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you again next week.
Yep.
And I might see you in about 3 months or so. So look after yourselves, keep up the fight, and stay strong.
Bye.
Bye.